Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into the world of veterinary medicine, but not just the science part, the gene therapy, the new vaccines, all that cutting-edge stuff.
Right.
We want to explore the emotional heart of it all,
Yeah.
that incredible bond, that fierce love between people and their animals.
Absolutely. And that connection, that fierce love you mentioned, it's basically the engine driving the whole profession. I mean, vets get drilled in the scientific method, right? Objectivity, data, logic.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality, the day-to-day in the clinic, it's often, ambiguous. You get these moments of heartbreak, but also these, everyday miracles. And fundamentally, despite all the tech, the goal really boils down to trying to repair and sustain mutual love.
Repair and sustain mutual love.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful way to put it. But doesn't that kind of fly in the face of scientific detachment? Keeping that professional distance? How do they even manage that?
Well, that's the tension, isn't it? And that exact tension is what we're diving into today. We're going to follow the true stories of two dogs, Helen and Cleo. Their cases and how the vet involved navigated them, they really show this struggle between, the science and the soul, if you will.
Okay.
Sometimes the outcome, the medical result, it's almost secondary to the intention behind it all, the love driving the decisions.
Okay, let's start with Helen, the foundling.
Yeah.
Her story sounds like a perfect example of how that commitment, that love, just sort of happens, unexpected.
Exactly. It begins late one night, really cold, clear night in central Massachusetts. Ben and Eileen are leaving this restaurant, Mario's. And Eileen, she's still really raw from losing her grandmother, Helen, who was 92. Just, a quiet moment after dinner.
And then, bam, right, something disrupts it.
Totally. As they get to their SUV, Ben lets out this, involuntary screech. This little black shape just materializes, moving fast, zeroed in on Eileen.
Like a heat-seeking missile, the source says.
Yeah, exactly like that. An American Cocker Spaniel, just ecstatic, tail going crazy, whole body wiggling, overjoyed at human contact.
But then the reality hits, the condition she was in.
Oh, yeah. Ben describes this smell first. Potent, fetid, pungent, just awful, like something wild, not a pet. And her coat? Matted, knotted, greasy, full of dirt. Just clear neglect, severe neglect.
So immediate dilemma. Ben's thinking logically, right? Maybe she's lost from one of those fancy houses nearby.
All right, check the neighborhood. But Eileen, she's feeling that grief, that empathy, and she jumps right in with, what if they dumped her? Left her.
And the search turned up nothing. Just perfect lawns.
Pristine lawns, motion detectors, no lost dog, and then they called animal control later.
Oh, and the officer knew her.
Oh, yeah. He was totally fed up with picking up that poor dog. Confirmed no one, absolutely no one, had reported a spaniel like her missing. She wasn't a lost pet. She was a known stray. A nuisance, sadly.
So that was it. Decision made.
Yep. Ben turns the car towards home. They're in this now. And Eileen seals the deal, names her Helen, right after her grandmother. Kind of feels like fate, doesn't it? Maybe a little comfort arriving just when she needed it.
Wow. Okay. So Helen's home. But her troubles aren't over. Part 1, you mentioned she might have faced this black dog syndrome too.
Yeah, it's a really surprising and frankly depressing thing shelter workers confirm. Black dogs genuinely have a harder time getting adopted. They stick around 3 times longer sometimes.
Is it just superstition, like black cats and bad luck?
That's probably part of it, yeah. Old folklore and stuff. But also, practically speaking, shelter staff think it's just harder to see their expressions and, not great lighting. It's harder to get that love at first sight connection when the dog's features are kind of lost in shadow. So Helen was already old, neglected, and black, stacked against her.
So they get her home, give her the bath, the makeover, but the underlying problems remained.
Totally. The dirt came off, but the neglect ran deep. Her ears were a mess. Chronic infections, bacteria, fungi just having a field day, terrible teeth, really painful looking, and issues with her anal sacs too, just classic long-term neglect.
And it was Ben's own dental misery that really pushed them to get her teeth sorted.
Yeah, isn't that something? He'd just had major periodontal surgery himself, was on painkillers, couldn't even drink cold water without pain, and it hits him. Helen must be feeling something like this all the time. That empathy, that connection, made him pick up the phone to their vet, Dr. J.
Right. And this is where things take a turn. Dr. J is sharp. No spaniels are prone to heart valve issues.
Endocarditis specifically, yeah.
Explain that link again, the teeth and the heart.
Sure. So endocarditis is an infection inside the heart, on the valves usually, And the bacteria causing it often come from the mouth, especially if there's severe gum disease or abscesses. Those bugs get into the bloodstream.
And head straight for the heart. So cleaning your teeth needed anesthesia, but anesthesia with a bad heart is super risky.
Exactly. So Dr. J says, hold up, we need a cardiac check first. Mandatory.
And the consult with the cardiologist, Dr. Molotov, initially seemed like great news.
Huge relief. Her heart measurements, the valves, everything looked perfect, structurally sound. She totally bucked the breed trend, looked like clear sailing for the dental work.
But the chest x-rays, part of the cardiac workup.
That's the kicker. The routine chest films. Dr. Molotov comes back with the news. Devastating news. Helen had a mass, a solitary mass in her lung.
And the irony was, she seemed fine. No coughing, playing normal.
None whatsoever. Happy dog, running, playing. The tumor was a complete incidental finding. Just pure bad luck. Diagnosed only because they were being careful before a dental procedure.
So Ben's first thought must have been, maybe it's benign. Please let it be benign.
Of course. But the oncologist, Dr. Abel, laid out the grim reality. In dogs, primary lung tumors, almost always malignant. Cancer.
But it was solitary, which was slightly better news.
Slightly. It meant it likely started in the lung, wasn't a metastasis from somewhere else, but the size, that was the big problem.
How big are we talking?
Huge, 6.5 centimeters. Dr. Abel described it as apple-sized, and prognosis is really tied to size. Under 5 centimeters, much better chance. Over that, especially that big, the odds drop dramatically.
So what was the actual prognosis given?
Pretty blunt. Even with major, complex, expensive surgery, less than 8 months, maybe as little as 4.
Wow. So here they are, geriatric stray, terminal cancer diagnosis found by accident, huge surgery costs, terrible odds. But Eileen had one single goal.
One clear, driving dream. Give Helen one summer, one vacation. Let her run on the beach on Prince Edward Island. That was it. That pure, simple, loving intention just overrode everything else. Logic, costs, statistics, irrelevant.
How did Ben reconcile that? He seemed the more pragmatic one.
He saw it as fundamental to who they were, to their marriage.
Yeah.
He basically said to Eileen, you're not selfish. If you believe this has to be done, we do it. It was an affirmation of their shared values. Love and commit me first. So yeah, they opted for the incredibly complex chest surgery.
Okay. An incredible act of hope against the odds. Now let's shift to Cleo, part 2. Her story is different. Starts with devotion, not neglect, but ends in tragedy.
Completely different beginning, yeah. Cleo belonged to Sandy Davies, and their bond, the source says, was like a love affair over 40 years in the making. Sandy's connection to animals went way back to her childhood.
A difficult childhood, it sounds like.
Yeah, emotionally distant mother, feeling isolated. Pets became her constants, her confidants. They filled that void, offered reliable love.
And that intensity showed early on, like with the caterpillars.
Oh yeah, that story's amazing. Not just noticing them on the road, but spending 2 hours rescuing every single one she could find, carrying them in her t-shirt to safety. That's deep empathy right there. Total commitment, even to the smallest lives. She even navigated her mother's objections to vet bills for her rescue beagle by framing it as saving money in the long run. Clever, always putting the animal first.
But Cleo wasn't a rescue, just
Yeah.
She was a gift.
Right. A miniature pinscher puppy for Sandy's 50th birthday. A conscious shift. Not saving a stray, but receiving something special, maybe something she felt she finally deserved. And her husband, Jan, obsessed with Danish history, named her Cleopatra, wanting her to be regal, you know?
But Cleo's life turned out to be, well, accident-prone. A hat trick of fractures.
Sadly, yes. Just 5 months old, she gets this complex fracture in her thigh bone. And it was weird. Usually puppies break at the growth plates, the weaker spots. Cleo broke the main shaft, the stronger part, needed major surgery. Plates, screws, the whole 9 yards.
And Sandy's response during recovery, the dog backpack.
Shows that devotion again. Didn't want to crate her, so she bought this backpack, carried Cleo around like a canine papoose while doing chores, going for walks. Really bonded them even closer during that healing time.
But the bad luck continued. Fracture number 2.
Yeah, later on, roughhousing with a lab puppy, she breaks 2 bones in her paw. And this really hit Sandy hard. Started blaming herself. I'm a lousy pet owner, she said. She just gets hurt around me. Really internalized it, felt maybe she didn't deserve Cleo.
Yeah, that's rough. And then the third fracture, the final one, that happened while visiting her daughter, Sonja, in Bermuda.
Yeah, Cleo was only 14 months old, and the incident itself was so minor. Got tangled in her leash, took an awkward tumble, but Bam, major trauma again. Broke her femur right where the plate from the first surgery ended.
A known weak spot, right?
Yeah.
Where metal meets bone.
Exactly. The stress concentrates right there. It's a recognized complication.
But this put Sanja in a terrible spot, feeling responsible, feeling like it reflected badly on her mother's care. Did the local vet buy into that?
No, thankfully. Dr. Glynn, the vet in Bermuda, saw the pattern but recognized it wasn't neglect. He reassured them, look, toy breeds are fragile, breaks happen, especially around previous surgical sites. He specifically dismissed any idea of, Munchausen by proxy or intentional harm, just tragic bad luck combined with breed fragility.
So because it was complex, Cleo gets flown to Boston, to Angell Animal Medical Center, for the repair. The surgeon there also reassured them.
Yeah, confirmed the break at the plate junction was a predictable mechanical issue, tried to ease Sanja's guilt, but then the anesthesia.
The crisis, what happened exactly?
It was incredibly fast, totally unexpected. During the induction phase, just getting her ready, she went into full cardiac arrest. Dr. Meganiello, the critical care specialist, diagnosed it on the ECG as torsades de pointe.
Torsades de pointe, that sounds dramatic. What is it biologically?
It means twisting of the points in French. On the ECG, the electrical pattern looks like it's twisting. It's a specific type of chaotic, super fast heart rhythm ventricular tachycardia. Basically, the heart's just quivering, not pumping blood effectively. It's lethal. Leads straight to fibrillation and death if you can't shock it back immediately. The vet's comment about it sounding sexy or romantic just highlights the awful contrast between the name and the reality.
And despite everything they tried, CPR, drugs...
Full court press, CPR, epinephrine, drugs to counteract potential anesthetic effects, the whole team working frantically, but they couldn't bring her back. Cleo died on the table.
And for the surgeon, crushing guilt.
Overwhelming. Just that one raw thought cutting through everything. She is dead, and you are responsible.
Wow. That failure leads us straight into part 3 of the collision of science with the unpredictable, the ambiguities, the ethics. Let's start with that anesthesia risk. The stats are pretty sobering.
They really are. For dogs, the risk of dying under anesthesia is roughly 1 in 1,000 procedures. Compare that to a healthy human, where it's more like 1 in 50,000.
10 times higher risk for dogs. Why such a huge gap, even at a top facility like Angell?
It often comes down to cost and, well, how we value animal lives compared to human lives, societally speaking. Pre-op screening isn't always as exhaustive. For pets, owners might decline extensive blood work or cardiac workups due to cost.
Yes.
Plus, vet practices might not have the same level of dedicated monitoring staff or equipment as a human hospital OR, and there's sometimes maybe a subtle pressure the source mentions, surgeons wanting to keep things moving, which could potentially impact the time spent on super detailed anesthetic monitoring in some cases. It's complex.
And the aftermath for the vet who lost Cleo. Intense self-blame, paranoia about lawsuits, complicated by how the law sees pets.
Absolutely. Legally, in many places, pets are still viewed largely as property, like a chair or a car. While courts are starting to recognize the emotional value, the legal framework struggles. So the vet's terrified of losing his license, being struck off, but also drowning in the emotional guilt of the loss he caused Sandy and Sanja, a debt no lawsuit could ever repay.
This really highlights how much vets deal with stuff that isn't strictly science. Intuition, owner psychology, misunderstandings. Like the Rory the Labrador story.
Oh, that's a great one for showing ambiguity. The vet was sure Rory's lameness was in the shoulder. Owner gets desperate, consults an animal psychic. Psychic says, nope, it's the wrist.
And the psychic was right about the location.
Right about the location, yeah. X-rays confirmed the issue was in the carpus, the wrist area, which totally threw the vet for a loop, waylaid and bullied him, as he put it. But the cause the psychic gave was wrong. The X-ray showed it wasn't a new injury, but a benign congenital clicky joint Rory was born with. Common in greyhounds, apparently.
So intuition pointed to the right spot, but the scientific diagnosis was different.
Exactly. You have to respect the data, even when something non-scientific gets you to the right place. Keep that skepticism.
Then there's just pure human chaos, like Mr. Turret and his dog Dylan.
Total chaos. Guy bursts in, yelling rabies. It has to be rabies. Dog's perfectly calm, no neurosigns at all. But the owner is panicked, convinced. The vet spends 20 minutes just managing the human hysteria, the accusations, before he can even properly look at the poor dog.
And the actual problem.
A chicken bone stuck harmlessly at the back of his throat. All that drama over a chicken bone shows how much vets have to be psychologists sometimes.
And communication breakdowns, like with Henry the cat's surgery.
A classic. Henry needed a perineal urethrostomy for a blockage. Standard procedure, but it involves, well, amputating the penis to create a wider opening. Necessary, life-saving surgery.
It sounds shocking if you don't understand it.
Totally. The owner hears it secondhand, calls the vet outraged. You're gonna do what? Lop off his penis and give him a sex change. Shows how crucial, careful communication is, especially when people are stressed.
Absolutely. And the weight of failure. The vet compared Cleo's death to the mistake his colleague made with Pickle the Basset Hound.
Right. That story is heavy. The colleague, Mike, accidentally castrated Pickle, a valuable breeding dog, because of a mix-up with the consent form. Owner wanted leg surgery, huge mistake, huge liability, lost stud fees, furious owner.
Devastating here.
Absolutely. But here's the vet's reflection. Pickle survived. He healed. The vet realized he would have preferred making that kind of catastrophic but ultimately fixable mistake over what happened with Cleo, because Cleo's death was final, permanent, unfixable. That finality was the unbearable part.
And he also touched on regretting not having Sanja there during the resuscitation attempts.
Yeah, he noted how in human hospitals, families are often present during crises that can help process the event. He felt this deep regret that veterinary protocols and maybe the chaos of the moment prevented him from letting Sanja be there to see the effort, maybe help absorb the shock, or even have input on things like the necropsy decision afterwards. That shared experience of grief is often missing.
Okay, so that brings us to part 4. Cleo's death was a tragedy, a failure. But somehow it leads to this unexpected legacy, challenging the vet again. Sandy's reaction was key.
Completely unexpected. When the surgeon finally called her, braced for anger, maybe legal threats, she responded with reminiscence and without a doubt, joy. She saw his suffering and offered understanding, not blame.
And she asked him to take an oath.
An extraordinary request. She made him promise. Promise me to take Cleo's spirit on a journey, realize all the wonderful qualities she embodied, and to pour all the skill, effort, and talent you had intended for Cleo into the lives and health of other unfortunate animals.
Wow. Basically channel that energy, that skill into future cases.
Exactly. And the vet grabbed onto this. It felt like the only way he could possibly make amends. He decided Cleo wouldn't be a symbol of failure, but a clinical touchstone for cases needing something beyond just science. A huge mental shift for him.
And then weird things started happening, cases defying explanation, like Atlas the rabbit.
Right after this internal shift, Atlas is having surgery for an abscess. Standard procedure. But on the table, he crashes, stops breathing. Heart rate drops to the 40s, which for rabbit is basically dead. The team essentially calls it probably already brain dead.
So they stopped.
Professionally, yes.
Yeah.
The surgeon's just closing the incision on what he believes is a deceased animal. And as he's putting in the last stitches, Atlas twitches, jerks his head, blinks.
No way.
Total shock. They immediately restart everything, full resuscitation mode, and Atlas makes a full recovery, walks out days later like nothing happened. Inexplicable.
That must have rattled them. And then Kyoza the cat.
Another one right after. Kyoza had a terribly infected gallbladder, really life-threatening. Her owners practiced Ekankar, this religion focusing on soul communication, using the sound hu.
Okay. How did that play out medically?
They put a hu card, like a prayer card, in Kyoza's cage, asked the text to say hu to the cat for peace and comfort, said their dreams were guiding them on her recovery.
The vet staff must have been skeptical.
Hugely skeptical. The vet jokes the picture on the card had the curative power of Miley Cyrus. But Kyoza makes this incredibly fast, against the odds recovery. They started calling her the Hugh Kitty because it just didn't fit the medical prognosis.
So the vet's struggling. Is this just medicine working sometimes? Or is it Cleo's spirit? Subtle forces?
He's wrestling with it. And he decides Helen the dog with the massive lung tumor, the one facing surgery after this shift, she'll be the real test, the objective scientific test of whether this magic, this renewed dedication was real.
So he goes into Helen's surgery carrying this extra weight, Sandy's oath, these weird cases. How hard was the operation itself?
Extremely difficult. The tumor was confirmed, 6.5 centimeters, apple-sized, deep in the base of the lung, right near major blood vessels and the airway. The pathologist had already warned resection might not be clean. Very tricky spot.
How did he manage technically?
Had to revert to basics. Go old school, as he put it. Carefully tying off blood vessels by hand just to make space to even fit the special lung stapler in there. He worked meticulously, felt he got it all, sealed the chest, tested for leaks, perfect repair, airtight. He felt he'd done it. A clean win.
But then came the objective truth, the pathologist's report.
Cold, hard science. The report confirmed cancer, yes. But the devastating line was, successful surgical resection questionable. Your margin was at best questionable, at worst, contaminated with cancer.
Explain contaminated margin for us.
It means the cancer cells went right up to the edge of the tissue the surgeon cut out. There was no buffer zone of healthy tissue around the tumor, which means almost certainly cancer cells were left behind inside Helen.
So the vet's hope for redemption, this fairy tale he'd built.
Completely shattered. The objective data just blew it apart. He realized he'd been driven by guilt, by vanity, wanting this perfect outcome to make up for Cleo. The science brought him crashing back to reality, felt like a failure all over again.
But
Yeah.
Helen wasn't done. Part 5. She defies the pathology report, defies the odds.
She really does. Despite knowing cancer cells were likely still there, she recovers remarkably well from the surgery, blows past the 4-month prognosis easily.
They did try chemo, though. Doxorubicin.
They did, driven by that hope. But it was rough. Doxorubicin, as you said, it's powerful stuff. Hits cancer hard, but also hits healthy, fast-dividing cells hard, too.
Like in the gut and bone marrow.
Exactly. Helen got slammed, severe vomiting, diarrhea, her white blood cell count tanked, ended up in critical care for a week. Eileen and Ben felt awful, like they'd poisoned their dog for maybe just a little more time. They decided quality was more important and stopped the chemo.
The dream. The PEI vacation.
They made it happen. Eileen confirmed they went. Ironically, their other dog, Dee Dee the Newfoundland, hated the water, only went in up to her elbows. So Helen's big beach run was more like a civilized saltwater foot massage.
But it wasn't about the details, was it?
Not at all. Eileen said the moment seeing Helen there was all-consuming, humbling, and unforgettable. The intention, the dream driving them, was fulfilled. That was the victory.
And Helen just kept going. Lived well over a year post-surgery, defying the Kaplan-Meier curve you mentioned. Explain that curve.
Right, the Kaplan-Meier curve. It's a standard tool in cancer research. Basically, a graph showing the probability of survival over time for patients with a specific diagnosis, tumor size, treatment, etc., based on historical data. When the vet says Helen defied it, he means she lived way longer than the statistics predicted she should, especially with those contaminated margins. She was a true outlier, a medical miracle, statistically speaking.
And this long survival finally prompted the vet to reach out to Sandy again. What did he learn then?
He finally emailed her, and Sandy's response was incredible. She shared that Cleo's death, while tragic, had this unexpected, profound, positive impact. It actually helped save her daughter Sanja's struggling marriage.
Wait, how does losing a dog save a marriage?
Apparently, the shock of Cleo's sudden absence made Sanja and her husband realize how much they took each other and their life together for granted. It was a harsh wake-up call that forced them to reconnect and value what they still had. Cleo's loss created space for healing elsewhere.
Sandy's perspective is just wow.
Isn't it? She chose acceptance, not victimhood. She saw purpose in the loss, saw that it had a purity, an impact, and a lesson beyond her own grief. She understood tragedy could still ripple outwards positively.
So how did Helen's story finally end?
She died 20 months after the surgery. The cancer did eventually return and progress, but the vet didn't see it as failure. He saw those 20 months, almost 2 years, lived as a cherished family member after being a neglected stray as a miraculous victory.
So the success wasn't the cure, it was the quality and length of life achieved against all odds, driven by intention.
Exactly, like that story snippet about someone wanting to donate a human pacemaker to a dog. It's about the intent. Cleo's spirit, channeled through Sandy's oath, was a gift of intention. Helen living so long was the manifestation of Ben and Eileen's pure, generous commitment. The final outcome, death, was inevitable. The miracle was the journey, the love given and received along the way.
What a journey indeed. So this deep dive really shows us those two poles of the veterinary experience. Cleo's death, the sudden, unavoidable tragedy, the scientific failure point, and Helen's life, the unexpected, odds-defying victory fueled by love and maybe something more.
It circles back to that initial tension. How much do you invest? The vet remembered advice from an old-timer, a 91-year-old guy named Jim. Never breathe your soul into a dog. Jim felt it was the only way to protect yourself from the inevitable pain of loss.
Which leads to the big question for anyone listening who loves an animal. Is Jim right? Is it better to hold back to build that shield, knowing loss is coming?
But then you look at Sandy Rasmussen. She experienced the absolute worst, unexpected, tragic loss after total devotion. And she chose the opposite. She surrendered to the pain but focused on the joy, the small packets of time. She embraced the vulnerability that comes with deep love.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If Helen's story suggests love and commitment can sometimes push beyond what seems medically possible, defying the cold stats, and Cleo's story shows that even devastating loss can ripple outwards with unexpected purpose and grace, then what's the real value of keeping your heart open? Knowing that connection, that true love will always come at a price, the price of potential grief, is the depth of that bond worth the risk anyway?